This is Heather Petherick, the Career Freedom Coach for Women. On today's Periscope broadcast, I want to answer a question that I often get asked by people when they hear that I am a career coach for women. It's this question, the question of, Heather, how do I know what I want to do with my career? I'm in a job, I know I don't want to do this, but I don't know what it is that I should be doing. How do I answer that eternal question of what to do with my life? It's a question I get all the time, so I want to answer it today on today's Periscope. So if you like what I'm saying, give me lots of hearts. You can tap the screen, give me hearts to know that you're enjoying what I'm saying, or post your comment. If you have questions about what I'm saying, just type them in and I'll answer them on this broadcast, okay? All right, so here's the situation. You're a talented, educated woman. You've been working for a few years in your career. You know you have lots of potential, but you are not loving the career side of things. You don't know what you want to do, but you know it's not this. How do you figure it out? Okay. In the 8 years that I've been working with talented women to figure out what it is for them, I find that there are always clues in our life about who we really are and what we're kind of predestined or designed to or wired to do really well. So there's always clues in your life. Now, often we overlook them because we think it's just weird quirks that we have, or it's silly things that we do, or it's idle hobbies that we have. But I have seen this too often in the lives of my clients and in my own career. So I'm going to share with you this. How do you pick up on the clues that are there in your life? They're like little breadcrumbs sprinkled throughout the history of your life, of moments that actually point to what you should be doing or what you are exceptionally well designed to do for your career. And I always believe that the most successful careers and the most successful people have found a way to do what they are excellent at and get paid to do it. They get paid to be who they are most naturally. That's the secret here. So when we talk about picking up on the clues of who you are and what you are designed to do or what you're more talented at than other people, I want to give you a couple of examples. So first example of what this looks like is a client of mine who, growing up, she used to spend a lot of time illustrating different fashion designs, and then she would lovingly color them and put them into she'd staple them into these little books. And she'd illustrate the cover, and she'd write her name on it, and she'd even draw like captions about what the different styles or fashion illustrations were about. And then she would lovingly give them to her friends and family as gifts because she thought they were so awesome. And she remembers doing this quite often when she was a child. That was her hobby, that was her thing. She kind of got known in her family as if you had a birthday, you were going to get one of Denise's little fashion illustrations. As she grew up, she took that as a sign that she was really good at fashion and design, and so pursued a career in fashion and design. Fast forward 10, 15 years, she found me online and said, you know what, Heather? I feel like I'm off track. I thought for sure early on in my career, this is who I was meant to be. I mean, look what I did as a child, but I'm just not feeling the love for this career anymore. I'm feeling burnt out and frustrated with some of the challenges. And so we spent time actually going back to that early clue, those little activities she did as a child. And what we then discovered was not that she was meant to be a fashion designer, but what she really loved was illustrating, and more than that, creating a book. And it was kind of like lightning strike when she realized that she had read those clues early on as a career. Not that she was destined to be a fashion designer, but it was really illustrations and specifically in books. And so what does she do now? She has launched a beautiful second career as a children's story illustrator and is lighting things up in the world of books and children's literature. So there's one example of a clue. Another example I want to share with you is a client I had a couple years ago. For many years in her career, very smart, very ambitious woman. She was a litigation lawyer in a small firm. It was her and another partner. And after 12 years of doing this, she too was feeling really burnt out and frustrated and really calling into question what she was doing with her life. A lot of the morality and the ethics was weighing her down, and she just couldn't see herself continuing in that line of work, but she had no idea what else she wanted to do. So we spent some time getting really clear in excavating and finding those little clues in her life. Now for her, she remembered as a child she was really captivated by the Nancy Drew series of books, right? The little girl who is a detective and solves mystery. So much that Joanne used to reenact. She used to pretend that she was Nancy Drew. She even had created this little Nancy Drew detective kit for herself. And she'd go out into her yard and she would trace or retrace the steps of animals or objects or people that had been there. She was trying to figure out where they had been and how they'd gotten there and where they were now. She remembers hours and hours of filling her time on evenings and weekends doing that as a child, and had lost that and hadn't thought about it for probably 20 years before we talked. But in the coaching that I do, sometimes it's useful for us to go back and think about who we were as a child before life's expectations and demands and the shoulds and the ought tos are overlaid on who we most naturally are. And it makes sense, right? As a child, you show up naturally who you are without the filter of expectations on you. But as we grow up and we get older and we seek to have approval and have success through jobs and income, we sometimes go away from who we most naturally are and adopt other behaviors that aren't as easy or come as natural to us. Anyway, back to the story about Joanne. Once she rediscovered this love she had, this thirst for being that detective and retracing the steps of people and objects, she realized that she could rekindle that love and that use of that natural genius she had, leverage her career as a litigation lawyer to something that's called provenance research, which, if you don't know what it is, it's actually retracing the movement of precious artifacts due to movement of people, war, whatever it is. But often these objects they find themselves in museums or in private collections, and we don't know how they got there. Well, that is what her future is all about now. She is launching her career as a provenance researcher and is looking at traveling the globe and consulting for major collections on their artifacts. It's fantastic. A third example I want to give you is one from my own life, because sometimes the clues of who we are and what we should be doing in our career aren't so much, maybe they didn't show up for us really clearly as children, but maybe it's something that happened later on in life that we need to notice. And that's certainly what it was for me. For me, I didn't really realize that I wanted to be a career coach for women until I was in university and I was pursuing an ag degree because I was a farm kid and I thought that's what I should do with my life. But I remember vividly not loving my degree and wondering, I'll probably get a good job and I'll figure things out later. But I wasn't really lit up about my education. But I do remember vividly one moment where in the spring, as a university student, you are working on resumes and applications for summer jobs. And for me, that was always really fun and interesting. In fact, some of my peers noticed that and noticed I was okay. I was pretty good at it. And they kept coming to me for help on writing their resume and crafting a really sharp cover letter. And I was loving the attention. I was loving the ability to dive in to see what the skills, abilities, and natural talents of my classmates were, and then converting that into a compelling story on paper, the resume and the cover letter. And then university goes on, you graduate and you get on with your life. But years later, when I was really frustrated in my career and obviously not loving it, I remembered that moment. Something about it compelled me. It lit me up. I didn't know why, but something about it was really meaningful for me. And as I discovered more of what that was, that process of seeing the potential in a person, translating that into powerful career decisions, and then seeing that person's life take off because of that work, that was it for me. That, in a nutshell, is my perfect job. So it's no wonder that this is what I do for a living as a career coach, is helping people figure out who they are and how to get paid to do that. So there's an example of one of those career clues that shows up, not necessarily as a child in the funny things that you did to pass the time, but later in life when events conspire and you're in a situation and you're like, holy cow, something about that rocked. So that's the advice that I want to give you today. If you feel like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know it's not this, then I'm going to challenge you to look at the clues that are already available for you in your life about what lights you up. Where do you lose track of time? What are those moments in your life that really had some sense of meaning and weight even if you can't explain it right now. I challenge you to look back at those moments, write them down, describe that situation or that scenario for yourself in detail, actually write it out, and then stand back and say, what's the common thread here? Something about those moments is a clue of who you most naturally are and where your success is inevitable. So that's what I wanted to share with you today about clues of what you should do with your career. Because who you are is who you've always been. Sometimes it shows up really clearly as a child before expectations and ambitions to be accepted dampen who you really are. Sometimes they show up in funny experiences you have later on in your life. But there are always clues available to you on who you are and how you can get paid to be you. If you like what I've shared today, give me lots of hearts. And if you want to find out more, I encourage you to go to heatherpetherick.com. I am the Career Freedom Coach for talented women. Thank you so much for watching.